Hi everybody, Debbie Hoyt here with another installment of the School Psych Vlog. Thank you for the feedback that I've been getting, both from the students and from the parents. And today's vlog is going to be a little bit different because I'm probably going to upset some people, especially the students who happen to watch these videos. Because today we're going to talk about a huge trigger when it comes to stress, anxiety, worry, technology. As I said, one of the things we have to expect is anxiety is going to happen. Anxiety is not the enemy. We don't want to fight it, but what are we going to do over time to take care of ourselves and to make sure that this doesn't become problematic, that these feelings don't become problematic and our bodies get so used to it that we're constantly in fight or flight. Just to review, some of the techniques we've talked about. One, you got to work your brain. You've got to externalize it. Let your brain know, I've got this. I can handle this. Engage that thinking part. Definitely get that going. Get outside and get active for a couple of moments. More times than not, I'll see students who are anxious, and for my own mental health well-being, I'll say, hey, let's take a quick walk around the building. And if it's a beautiful day like it is today, let's go outside for that quick walk. So feel what's happening outside of yourself. Take a few deep breaths. What do you hear? I always say, some of the kids will talk about the five senses. So I say, name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell or touch, 2 things you might be able to taste, and whether you can taste it in the moment or not. And then like the last one, again, kind of that smell, taste, touch. I alternate those between the 3 things of what's going on. But that helps you kind of orient yourself to what's real and what's going on in the moment. Doing a little bit of a Dear Me letter. This is what we need to know. What are your coping strategies that you do have, that you're putting in place? And also being organized, having these techniques that you can access. You practice them when you're calm. You practice them when you're in a good place. They become automatic when you get into a state of crisis. And we're going to talk a little bit more, about getting yourself organized and some of those executive functioning skills and what that may look like. But for today, I want to talk about, I'm showing you my cell phone, technology and the impact this has on especially a teenager's and a preteen's psyche overall. A lot of times I'll hear people talk about what's happening in today's society that bullying is so prevalent. I've said it before, I'll say it again, bullying has always been around. Bullying probably will always be around, unfortunately, but we want to have the skills when we're dealt with, whether it be bullying, whether it be somebody's not nice, whether we're in a situation that makes us uncomfortable, however it may be and how it's perceived, these are techniques that are going to help us when we're feeling adverse reactions. One of the things that happens is, if when I was growing up, if I was on the playground and somebody was mean to me, made fun of me, whatever it may have been, whatever the rumor was going around, I went home, and by Monday morning, it was pretty much forgotten about because, people went to their own homes. We didn't have technology. There was no YouTube. I was in high school when we finally got MTV. My phone was tethered to a wall that was in the kitchen. Luckily, the cord went around to the laundry room so I could have a little bit of privacy. But pretty much, people did not have access to this 24/7. I did not communicate with people in other states or other countries unless they were family or friends that I already knew. Today with technology is if something happens, and we know this through the news. I woke up this morning and I had 53 alerts about what happened in California overnight. I went to bed, everything was fine. This morning, it was all over the news. That's constantly what I heard. It was all over, all these updates and alerts on my phone. We live in a time, in a society that everything is immediate, which really doesn't always help our psyche. especially with all the unfortunate events that we're going through. We do have to be alert. It could happen to us, and it is important to be educated. But for teenagers, we have to remember the thinking part is not fully developed. So they get on their phones and they communicate constantly. And it's kind of the old game of telephone keeps going on. Somebody says something, then somebody says something else, and then somebody says something else. And then it grows because their friends on whatever platform they're using, they get into it, other people get into it, and all of a sudden you have this person in Germany by process of the threads that are being passed around saying the same thing. So ultimately, what happens is technology is great for communication, but at the same time, there's that unfortunate communication that we have to think about. And it does sometimes grow because of the connections that we have with people, which could be very unfortunate. Teenagers, this is where I need to talk to you, that if somebody starts saying something to you that you don't like, you can't do it over this. If you're not going to say, this allows people to be speaking of alerts, this allows people to be very, very powerful. People are going to say things over technology that they would never say to a person's face. If you're not going to say it to a person's face, don't put it online. End of story. If you're not going to put it say it straight to somebody's face, you shouldn't be putting it online. At the same time, if somebody does say something to you, do not respond back, because we have to think of those 3 pieces of bullying that we talked about in earlier videos. One of those things is a balance of empower, so that imbalance of empower. Somebody's stronger, somebody's trying to control you. If you start to get vengeful and start talking back to them, is there an imbalance of power? No. And we very often see that it's not a bullying situation anymore, but it becomes a conflict between 2 people that really arises quite seriously sometimes. So if you have one of these and people start texting you, Snapchatting you, FaceTiming you, whatever platform you have, because they're all there, do not respond in kind. You need to stop and you need to show it to an adult you trust, whether it be somebody here at school, whether it be, hopefully it would be your parent. That would be my first step, is your parent, because especially where this a lot of times happens outside of school, letting your parent know. And parents, you can also contact your guidance counselor, like, my kid received this message, what do I do from here? A lot of times I'll tell people that if it's persistent, block them. Another piece is these things, they're talking in the psychological world that technology is addictive, just as addictive as many of the illicit drugs that are out there and the opioid crisis that we're having. I hear parents talk about the cell phones and technologies are the vein of their existence, and being a parent myself, I can totally understand that you sometimes want to run over it with an 18-wheeler, but we know that we can't do that. Parents, you also want to be aware of what your kids are doing with their technology and what they're doing. Because like I said, their thinking parts of the brain, their rationalization parts of the brain are not developed at this point. So we have to model behaviors for them, and we have to help guide them through this time. Does that mean that I suggest checking your child's cell phone and technology use? Yes. We still have kids. We know that many kids aren't using it appropriately. And that is something that you need to sit down and have a discussion with your child about, and what that's going to look like and how that's going to be. What happens when they do receive messages, whether they be words or pictures, having a discussion about what you do send and what you don't send. What happens when you receive a text or a message or Facebook that they know is inappropriate? What are they going to do? And having those conversations and looking through histories and whatnot and making sure that it is appropriate. I don't suggest doing it behind their back. Having a child myself, one of the things is I got a second cell phone, so it's my cell phone that he gets to use. Uh, he was also given an iPod by his grandparents. And I know many of you, the kids will say, well, so and so gave me this phone for my birthday or Christmas or whatever, which is great. And they're very lucky and they're very privileged. But who ultimately is paying for that bill? Is what I turn around a lot of times to the students. Who ultimately is paying for the bill? And as the adult, you're paying for that bill because also at the same time, if there are pictures that are of inappropriate nature, um, where your name is on the bill, and as a parent, you need to be aware of what's going on because we now know, I'm trying to be cautious of my wording, but we now know that there are I'm not talking about predators because we absolutely know that there are predators out there. I have lots of conversations about knowing who the people are on the other side of that screen. But we also have people that just, a lot of kids who, unbeknownst to them, that they're doing something that they know they don't realize is not only inappropriate and wrong, but could possibly be illegal, especially when it comes to some of the pictures that are sent. So what do they do when they get those pictures, and how do we keep everybody safe and not sending them on to somebody? So knowing what your kids are doing on technology is really important because they are being blasted 24/7 by social media, by news, by what their friends are doing. They're also being blasted. There's a lot of reports out there about people wanting to be liked, that liked buttons and how many views have I gotten. Um, that really interrupts somebody's personal self-confidence of, wow, I've only got, you know, 57 likes on this picture. It may be because you just have so many things there that other people missed it. But that really hurts teenagers. Do they understand that a like, 57 likes, does not identify who they are? And so when they're not receiving the likes or the views that they hoped for, they start to get feelings of stress, and which can turn into worry. It can turn into sadness or something even more severe. Um, so having conversations about when they post things and they get feedback, how do we utilize that feedback and what's real and what's not? What would be considered, um, what would be considered kind of a healthy perspective of when we post things. So definitely having those conversations. And at the same time, I have, if you looked at my social media, it's the most boring thing ever. But I use social media a lot to connect with people all over the world. When I think about some of the research that I've looked at, it hasn't been because I've read a ton of magazines or a ton of books. Believe me, don't have a lot of time for that. But between some of the sites I've been able, between other people's blogs and other people writing articles all over the world, that I'm connecting with people all over the world. So it can have great usage. Kids don't go to the library anymore. When I'm thinking about, going to school myself, I do all my classes on here and talking to people like I'm talking to you and getting all my research home in my pajamas. Whereas before I had to go to like a building with books in it and other people and, you know, had to, couldn't be drinking coffee and whatnot. So, um, having a discussion about the benefits of it as well. And thinking about your own social media use. Again, we're modeling a lot for kids when we have these interactions with people via text, via phone, um, in person. We're modeling a lot of behaviors. So, you definitely want to pay attention to technology because, as beneficial as this is, you can have instant connection with your kids. Um, you know, you feel a little bit better knowing that they're safe. There's apps where you can follow them all over the place, but know what's going on inside the phone as well. What are your kids on? What sites are they seeing? Who are they talking to? What are people saying to each other? Um, Another piece of information that I want to give, and another suggestion, because I know sometimes parents you want to give your kids some freedom. They're growing up and you want to develop that independence, which I can totally appreciate and understand when it comes to social media. And when you're ready for your child to go on a platform like Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all those other ones, and as a parent, you don't want to be their friend. Um, One of the things that I suggest that I've personally found very helpful as well is find a responsible adult that you trust who can monitor their online behavior. Um, I had a couple of cousins who were growing up. Their parents weren't online. When Facebook first came out, they didn't even have cell phones. They knew nothing about it, but I know my cousins really wanted to go on it. And I was the responsible adult that watched them. Believe it or not, yes. My cousins felt I was responsible enough to kind of watch over their kids on social media. And there were times that I would see some things going on in high school and I could send them a private message or call them and say, this is not good what they're saying and what's going on here. And kind of intervene at that point. So, that is kind of, I don't want to say a way around that, but that is also some way that you can build trust and also build those skills so that they're using technology responsibly. Another piece around these things too is I strongly suggest setting time limits as to when it's going to be used throughout the day. So whether it's 2 hours, whether it's 6 hours, what is that time going to look like? And that varies between you. That's a discussion that you have as a parent. But thinking about getting off the technology, getting off the Wiis and the PlayStations, and again, the teenagers who are watching this are not going to like me, but getting away from technology overall and doing something else with your body. Getting up, moving around, moving your eyeballs and blinking your eyes. Um, Technology can definitely offer some stress relief, but that is very immediate and it's a very short-term impact and it is not long lasting. So that's something to think about, that sometimes kids will be like, oh, I need a song. Well, okay, so you're going to listen to 2 songs or 3 songs, however many songs you want. So really limiting around if they're going to use technology as, a lot of kids are like, I feel better after I play Fortnite. Putting some guidelines around, okay, you're going to play Fortnite for so long, or I want you to try this first, and I want you to try these other things afterwards. So putting some restrictions around the amount of time, not only that they're going to use technology, but putting restrictions around how technology is going to be used for relaxation. There are great apps out there for relaxation, so I'm not saying don't use it for relaxation at all, but think about what you're doing as a parent to relax. Whether you use a meditation or there's like this other one that I have that you kind of put your finger on it and swirl it around and it does all sorts of neat things. All of those can be great tools to use, especially in the moment, but making sure that you step away from technology and do some of the other things that we've talked about as well, because this is just engaging your brain and you're not taking care of the anxiety. This is just engaging the brain. You're actually not dealing with the anxiety at all when you use this to get away from everything. When you're playing games or talking to your friends or checking whatever platform, this is not taking care of the anxiety. It's actually making it worse, believe it or not. Whereas some of the other skills that we've talked about and coped with will definitely help more deal with that anxiety and empower you in dealing with those anxiety. So that's gone way over today, so my apology, but I thought that was an important piece to talk about. Next week, one of the things parents wanted to know about is how to get kids to talk at home more. So I'm going to start talking about that because that will help with a lot of the feelings they're having. But parents, just to warn you, it also involves how you listen. So thank you to all the veterans who have served our country or who are currently serving. We have our Veterans Day Assembly on Friday the 9th, but I just wanted to close and say thank you very much to all the veterans who have served, past or current. What you do is awesome in protecting us, and I really want to thank you. So have a great week, everybody. Bye.